The Garden Report is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Hey, Buddy Manning here. Merry Christmas, TD Garden. It's that long-awaited Christmas matchup, Celtics-Sixers, the first one between the new-look Philadelphia team as well as the Celtics coming off their championship here. And for all the hype coming into the season, no Dalzell alongside of the Sixers building a roster that's ready to compete with the Celtics. A disastrous start prevented that, kept them out of mind for the first couple months here, but with Paul George, Joel Embiid, and Tyrese Maxey, who devastated the Celtics defense in this one, they looked like every bit of that threat we both thought was going to be the most challenging in the East here. So they're clearly back. The Celtics lost their third game over their last four now and are playing the worst basketball of their season. So we'll get into Philadelphia another time, but how concerned are you about the way the Celtics are playing right now?
I would say this is a bad stretch. I don't want to deny that. You know I'm all about the sample sizes. I feel like the sample size is substantial enough where we can draw that there is bad habits that are beyond just a couple days here and there. I actually asked Tatum. I remember he said last year, like, it's been a bad week of work when they lost a few games, capped by that Lakers loss. And he didn't. And I said, does it feel like that right now, or does it feel like something different? And I think based on his answer, my interpretation of that was that he does feel like it's a little bit of a bigger picture. He said, we all kind of have to look in the mirror, man up, and be better. And we're not panicking, we're not concerned, but we have to be better. And I think this is the adversity that I haven't really seen them experience in the last year. Like, maybe you have to go back to 2023 to see a stretch of basketball where they've been this inconsistent. And so not panicking, because this group has a body of work that speaks for itself, and that we have every reason to believe that a 2-game losing streak or a bad stretch here, they're going to respond. And when he says that, I believe it, because we've seen it. That being said, this is a moment now where you do have to respond, and I think in 2 weeks, if they haven't, then I think you're having conversations around, is this the same team that won the championship last year, or is it not? But I think those conversations are premature right now.
The moment that kills me from this game, and they've struggled with guys like Maxey throughout this stretch that we're talking about here in December, but 1 second left on the shot clock and inbounds, they're down 5 at that point, I believe. They just let them go right to the basket and score. That should be an easy situation to get a stop and keep that comeback going with 1 minute and 9 seconds left there. Everything looked too easy. Miscommunications on Caleb Martin, who hit 7 threes in this game, and an overall apathy for defense that I think does bring me back to 2023. And I've hesitated to make that comparison because different roster. That season just felt like a mess from the start, with Joe Mazzulla taking over 2 days before the year got started. But I remember the same references to them being fine, ranking high in defense, but you had these games where you'd just be like, what was that defense from these guys? And to me, even though he liked the defense against Orlando, Joe Mazzulla, I thought there were lapses in that game too, specifically the big one on De Silva at the end there. And this stuff keeps happening. I know it's part of their game plan to hedge away from guys and recover and play the percentages, but they didn't have a steal in this game until 3 minutes left.
Yeah.
And the broadcast noted that hasn't happened to the Celtics since 1990. And I know it's just a weird night there, but I do think it reflects a lack of punch, power, consistency from this defense this year. Last year, the defense was a big part of their success.
Yeah, definitely. And I laugh a little bit when we talk back to 2023, because it's like this almost ominous thing. They did come a game within the finals,
but there were bad
right?
signs.
There were bad signs that year, but I also think
sometimes,
one thing that I've learned from Joe Mazzulla is that sometimes it's a couple of different things go differently, and maybe we're talking about last year's team different. Like, I don't want to say that, this type of. There were moments last year where we were really doubting this team too. There was earlier in the season.
Not quite like this, though.
Not quite like this.
There'd be one-offs.
Yeah, I guess this 4-7. These last 7 games have been bad. This most recent stretch. The defense to me feels like a contagious thing where, I totally bought, I know Tatum's very media trained and he always says the right thing, but it is an individual thing. Like, if you go back and watch individual guys and individual plays, their individual defense is just not there. And yeah, there's going to be schematic things and miscommunications, but the team that they have between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, there's a huge discrepancy between their best defense and their worst. I don't know a player that has a bigger discrepancy between his best defensive game, he's the best defender in the world. He's up there. And then his worst defensive game,
Tatum?
Jaylen.
Oh, Jaylen.
But both of them, honestly, they're both good examples of just having a massive swing of what they're capable of. And I think as this team will go as they go on the defensive end. If I see Jaylen play defense the way that he did last year in the playoffs and in the finals, I don't think this team has defensive issues anymore. I don't want to put it on one guy, but that's how great he can be on that end and how contagious it can be as well. And in the first half today, And for stretches of this game, beyond that, I didn't feel like he was locked in. And then when he locks in down the stretch, he's forcing turnovers. He's making big plays. And so you don't have to be too worried, because it's like, why wouldn't he lock in? But at a certain point, like if it's going to be weeks of this, you can't just keep pointing back to something that took place 6 months ago. You have to see something a little more recent for that.
This is a good shooting game for the Celtics too. They hit 20 and 49 attempts, gave up 17 the other way though, and that's what kills you on a night like this. This stretch coming up, it's going to tell us a lot about them. Indiana twice over the weekend. It's good timing. It's the kind of team that's hurt them in recent weeks with the quick guards and rapid activity and athleticism all over the floor. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond to that immediately after these losses. But then right into January, Toronto, Minnesota, Houston, Oklahoma City, that team that I think could bother them with this type of style more than any other, and then of course Denver. So we're talking about 5-6 games coming up, 7 games that are going to tell us a lot about this team.
Definitely. And I think one thing I'll say is it felt a little bit different today post-game, the way that Joe Mazzulla, the way that Jason Tatum were talking. They were willing to say there is an issue. We're not at our best. We have to look ourselves in the mirror. And so to me, that's like, they say like that's the first sign of acceptance, is that, just being aware of something and then going and getting better at it. And I'm curious now if they respond to this loss. They could come out now and blow Indiana out 2 games in a row, and it's like, wow, they really woke up. They saw this game on national TV. They didn't like how it felt to lose on Christmas and kind of look at themselves in the mirror and realize that they're not the same team that they were last year. Or maybe this is the beginning of a bigger picture. And I could see it going either way right now. I think they're going to respond really well, because like I said, it's how they typically do. But yeah, defensively, that's where I'm more focused than anything offensive. I think when you see this team connected defensively, they can be so special. And they missed Drew tonight. They missed KP. Like, they missed key pieces. I don't want to diminish that. And the 76ers had a really good shooting performance. But still, I think that's where you're going to have to see a little bit of a change for them.
Injuries have hurt this team, there's no doubt. Poor shooting up until tonight, part of the story of the season so far. But it has been a different season through about 30 games now for the Celtics. Hot start. Now they're running into their first extended adversity this year. So we'll see how they respond to it. But the Sixers, in what should have been a get-right game for the Celtics after that Orlando one on Monday, catch the Celtics again here and shock them, going up 14 in the first half, 15 in the second half. Celtics rally falls short, and they lose here to Philadelphia in their first matchup of the season. For Noah Dalzell, I'm Bobby Manning. Check out Prize Picks. Use the code CLNS over there for a $50 bonus when you play your first $5 lineup, and Game Time for $20 off your first ticket purchase over there. Terms apply. We'll be back with more content throughout the end of the week here before the Celtics take on the Pacers for 2 games on Friday and Sunday. This has been the Garden Report. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hey, Bobby Manning here. If you made it this far, you probably enjoyed this video, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and check out our social media platforms at Celtics CLNS.